No dice frase alemana.
Eh?
3 seconds.
Good afternoon, friends, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, welcome to our online event in cooperation with Global Advocacy Group Stand with Hong Kong today. And today on a line discussion for 1 hour long, we will focus on 2021 Hong Kong Legislative Council elections under the title From Parliamentary to Managed Democracy. I wonder what is after the managed democracy comes. Definitely one-party domination, autocracy, and no democracy at all. Indeed, this year, in a week time, this Sunday, on the 19th of December, the Hong Kong Legislative Council elections will be held, and for the first time since China completely overhauled Hong Kong's electoral system in March. The elections will be held under new circumstances and new rules. So to understand all the complexity of this event, as well as to predict probably the outcome of the elections, colleagues, we have today an excellent group of speakers, as well as my colleagues from the European Parliament, to discuss, to debate, and to explain our viewers what we should expect from the Legislative Council elections in Hong Kong on this Sunday. We have 2 speakers from Hong Kong. This is Chris Chang and Kawai Lee. I will introduce them in order. They will make presentations around 10 minutes or so, and then we will have a group of my colleagues from the European Parliament to give their assessment and their view on the events. Let me to introduce the first speaker of our today discussion. This is Chris Chang. He is an award-winning Hong Kong journalist covering politics and diplomacy. Chris, most welcome to our online debate. And Chris is now a London-based freelance reporter for Voice of America. And we wonder why he is in London, because he's forced, to leave Hong Kong. He was previously editorial director at Hong Kong Free Press, where he received an honorable mention in excellence for explanatory reporting at the 2020 Society of Publishers in Asia Award. Chris, you're most welcome. You have 10 minutes of time to make your statement. Chris, floor is yours.
Thank you. Can we show the slides I have prepared? Thank you. No, I can start without the slides. What I want to do in this presentation is that I want to give you a brief overview of the change in the electoral system in Hong Kong, not just the current one, but some changes since 2016 or so. But first, I want to read out a bit of the basic law of Hong Kong, the so-called de facto or mini constitution of Hong Kong. About the about the Legislative Council, there is the Article 68, which says that the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region shall be constituted by election. The method for forming the Legislative Council shall be specified in the light of the actual situation in Hong Kong and in accordance with the principle of gradual and orderly progress. Now, it did not explain what it means by in light of actual situation and what is gradual and orderly process. Sorry. The next line is the ultimate aim is the election of all the members of the Legislative Council by universal suffrage. Again, it did not say when should that ultimate aim be completed. The next point I want to highlight in that article is that the method for forming the Legislative Council, it's prescribed in the Annex 2 of the Basic Law, which China's top legislature, the National People's Congress, has the power to change at any time, which is what happened for this time. So even according to the law, there is very vague description of what the Hong Kong electoral system is and what China can change. Now, give me a minute to share my screen. Sorry. No, in fact, anyway, there's some technical issues which I can't resolve right now. Now, and the next point I want to make is that the Legislative Council was never truly democratic. There are directly elected seats after the handover from of Hong Kong to China after 1997. There is a geographical elections for lawmakers, which are directly voted by people. But there are also seats called the functional constituencies that are voted by industry professionals, by groups, even by companies, that these are not able to be voted by normal people, common voters. So by the design of the Legislative Council, it was never really truly, completely democratic, because since 1998, the number of directly elected seats never exceeded 50% of the whole council. And legislators, by design, did not have power to table bills related to political system or public finance, meaning that most of the bills that matters in terms of a political system, they could not table it. And also, government bills are much easier to pass by the system design. Now, after 2016, there were some changes made to the election system. There were cases of candidates election mail, which talks about Hong Kong independence or self-determination of the people being banned from being sent out to voters. And then we have nominees in the elections being banned for running in the elections. Then we have lawmakers who were elected being disqualified. Now, according to account by a media outlet, within 4 years, there were up to 30 times of disqualifications in Hong Kong. What makes things worse quicker, of course, is the 2019 protests, with at the beginning up to 2 million people march on the streets, followed by around 6 months of protests. The most serious and horrifying conflict are the siege of the Chinese University of Hong Kong and also at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Now, we don't exactly know what are Beijing's thoughts at the time, but it seems that according to news reports, commentary pieces at the time, it seems that Beijing believed they could win the upcoming 2019 district council election, which we see our panelist Li Ka-wai was involved in, that Beijing believed they would win that election. And so very interestingly, at the time, there was only one candidate being disqualified from that election instead of quite a few of candidates in the last election in 2016. Only one was disqualified, who was Joshua Wong, because Beijing really didn't want to see him being elected. But the result was completely out of expectation. Within 18 district councils of Hong Kong, the Democrats, including Mr. Lee here, won 17 out of 18. And there is a very high turnout, I think a record turnout of 71.2%. So Democrats in that election won close to 400 seats out of 452. So that was that was one of the main reasons I believe that Beijing wanted to change the system, because if there was another election, free election, so to say, that people could participate in, there is a high chance that Beijing or pro-Beijing candidates would lose. Last year, the pro-democracy candidates, due to the high interest in participating in the election, proposed a primary election to select the candidates to run in the 2020 Legislative Council election, which was postponed. But because of that, 55 people were arrested for participating in that primary. And of the 55, 47 people were charged with subversion under the national security law, which is the case now you can hear about time and time again in courts in Hong Kong. Of the 47 people, only 14 people were granted bail, and the 33 people would have been in jail for a year very soon, still pending a trial. Now, their trial haven't even started, but they have been in jail for a year. And now that the Legislative Council election last year was postponed, Beijing stepped in to change the election system. In the new election system, there were 90 seats, 20 more than the past election. But all candidates have to go through a vetting committee controlled by none other than government officials and other people, so that all candidates are technically patriots. And the directly elected seats decreased from 35 to 20, with a new sector of 40 people from the election committee, which selects the chief executive, meaning that the directly elected seats have decreased in significant portion within the new legislative council. There were competition, actually, but only among the pro-establishment camp. I can give you an example, which is in the catering sector, in the so-called functional constituency. There was one seat in the catering sector, which was uncontested for 21 years, from 2000 until now. The incumbent faces a challenge from a newcomer, both people actually both in the catering business. But the newcomer, a 40-year-old businessman, in his public election materials online in the election website, he does not give any election platform. His information actually said relevant information has not been provided by the candidates. And the newcomer does not have any social media presence at all. Maybe there is, but it's very hard to find. So it makes you wonder what kind of competition this is. And there are also some so-called non-pro-establishment candidates. So neither pro-establishment nor pro-democracy. Why is that? There are some older generation candidates who were considered Democrats maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago. But because in the change in stance, the change in words and deeds, they were no longer considered by Democrats to be Democrats. There were also some younger politicians from so-called middle-of-the-way groups, so they don't want to be seen as pro-establishment or pro-democracy, but at the same time, this makes voters confused. What do they stand for? So these people who are either of the sort of older generation Democrats or the younger generation who consider themselves middle in the way is actually not liked by both sides, not by the Democratic voters, not by the pro-establishment voters. Even the government itself has a very weird stance on whether people should vote. Now, on December 6th, last week, the Beijing official on Hong Kong, Sha Baolong, he urged the public to vote in the election, saying that Beijing embraces diversity in the election. And 2 days later, on December 8th, Hong Kong's chief executive Carrie Lam says low voter turnout may actually indicate good governance. So people, if they vote or not, it doesn't matter. And then 2 days later, on December 10th, Hong Kong government says buses, trains, and trams would be free for all residents on the election day. But this is also very weird because most people, their polling stations should be right next to their homes. So honestly, we don't know who, if we should vote or not. And just to quicken up for the last slide, there were some activists urging people to cast a blank vote in protest, but this is in violation of a new law passed this year. So as a result, 6 people in Hong Kong at least have been arrested by the anti-corruption agency for sharing these posts. Now, on to the final point. Most people in Hong Kong, or at least most of
Chris,
the...
may I ask you, to come to the end because we are short of time, all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The final. Yeah. Most of the pro-democracy population in Hong Kong do not consider participating in this election. Instead, funny enough, the real election that they consider could be the annual singer competition, which shows the lack of enthusiasm, lack of attraction of this current Legislative Council election. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now we move directly to Kawai Lee, who is the youngest former councillor from the Tuen Mun district, being elected in 2019. Definitely he must be in political exile, and he resigns in UK for the time of being activist and a very known political figure in Hong Kong. Kawai, may I ask you, to continue this issue, and to present your perspective on incoming Legislative Council elections in Hong Kong. And please observe 10 minutes rule. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, members of European Parliament, Chris, member from State of Hong Kong. I'm Kawai Lee, a former district councillor in Hong Kong, once running for the Legislative Council and now living in the UK and applying for the asylum. I've once devoted myself to politics in 2014 in the Umbrella movement, if you know. I was in the university student union back then. And that's how I met Nathan Law, Sunny Chern, and other activists. But after the movement, I tried to live a so-called normal life by being a journalist, working hard and hoping for Hong Kong to be a better home for Hong Kongers in obscurity. And then in 2019, the biggest democratic movement appears in the cities. And I think that's how my life, like most Hong Kongers, changed fundamentally. I was still a journalist back then, right before the district council election in 2019. And it turns out the district I have been living for 20 years received no pro-democracy nomination. So I stood up, and because I knew it was the call, I was elected in the district I grew up in, where I lived in for 25 years, by the neighborhood I knew for 25 years. And there's so much attachment in between. And it's really upset when we have to say goodbye to our home because of participating in the democratic primaries and fears of political persecution. I think most of the members here really know and could never forget the excitement, honor, and call of duty when we were elected. And I felt the same disappointment when I have to leave my office. District council election in 2019 and primaries of Electoral election in 2020 shows Hong Kongers' disappointment in the government and the CCP. But still, the CCP and Hong Kong governments have never followed people's voices, but respond with repression and terror. When their people stand up and speak loud, they never listened, but to repress. We once hoped to speak louder in the Legislative Council election in 2020, and that was also why I became a candidate for the safe seat elected only by the district councillor in the functional constituency. And I have fully support from the pro-democratic camp and resistant camp, but Beijing chose to postpone the elections and make the election disease for patriots only. It took away the only way to demonstrate our civil rights like a modern so-called international city by voting. And now what we have got is a patriots only elections, not only cutting the numbers of direct elected seats from 45 to 20, but implementing a rigorous vetting process for candidates. So those activists labeled it as resistant camp, like me, can never become a lawmaker of Hong Kong now. We don't even have to mention that most of the city opposition figures remains behind bars, are bored in self-exile, have quit politics, or are barred from running. And I think here's some call for action if we can do, and maybe some of the others ask what we can do even Hong Kong is in this situation. And I would say that we must boycott this Hong Kong Legislative Council election, as most of the Hong Kongers refuse to vote under the new system. They don't even recognize it as a system. It's just a show and making fun of the democratic system that civilized countries believe in. And I think it is important that democratic institute like European Parliament not to recognize the election results under the new election system, as the election system is fundamentally undemocratic. There's no mechanism to monitor the process of the elections, and is not open and fair, and potentially no turnout will demonstrate Hong Kongers do not want to legitimize the new system. I believe the newly elected Electoral member are just merely the rubber stamp for the CCP and the Hong Kong government try to demonstrate, yeah, everything is still okay. Hong Kongers can still vote their representative even after 2019. and the national security law. So I think that's why all the democratic allies worldwide need to stop recognizing the elections and stop treating the newly so-called elected lawmaker as official. And I think that's the least we can do. And I hope you get the message. And I think that's it for all my speeches. Thank you. And I think that's it for all my speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Kawai. Thank you, Chris, for your statements. And now, colleagues, we go to the comments and statements to be made by the members of the European Parliament, who are members of the informal Hong Kong Watch Group. And first on my list is my good colleague is Juan Fernando Lopez Aguilar. Juan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Petras. Thank you, dear friends. And I thank, of course, Chris and Kawai Lee, our guest speakers, to update us on the situation on Hong Kong, not to our surprise, much to our dismay. The point I would like to stress, because I would like to be brief, is that we should care particularly about the rule of law implications of that deterioration in the side of human rights and in the side of democracy. I understand that as to the rule of law implications of these national security laws that are enforced in Hong Kong, there has been, first of all, a prolongation of the period of pretrial detention. There has been a number of hand-picked judges with severe consequences as to the protection of rights of individuals and democratic rights, which are essential. But more than that, I understand that just for the grounds, on the grounds of being found guilty of incitement to secession by the appointed judges, hand-picked judges by the chief executive, according to the national security laws, there has been a conviction of 9 years sentence. And then also restrictions on the right of legal counsel, including the chair of an electoral observation mission to Hong Kong. So that has political implications for the European Union in all. And the point I would like to make is that for the time being, we see no conditions to actually have a continuation of the terms of agreement, including the trade agreement by the European Union. We should combine forces in order to draw the attention of the High Representative and the European Union foreign policy as to send a strong message as to this deterioration of the rule of law implications. And besides, we should try to make sure that European citizens planning to visit or stay in Hong Kong, they can bear the consequences of being enforced these national security articles, which are absolutely abusive, of course, against the understanding of these two systems, one country, two systems, which was the grounds of the incorporation of Hong Kong to Chinese sovereignty. But besides that, I guess that there are strong European Union implications as to this deteriorating situation. Those are the comments I would like to share with you. As to this deteriorating situation.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you for your very clear statement during your intervention. Next on my list is Anna Fotiga, who is a member of European Conservative and Reformers group. Anna, floor is yours. Anna, is there a technical problem? So I think we have some technical problems. You know, it's not easy to be fully cyber secure once you discuss Hong Kong issues. I think continental China remains very actively involved in some issues of organization of our online discussion. I invite you, I mean, to take a seat and to be explaining your position on incoming legislative election in Hong Kong. There is no need to introduce Rainer Bütikofer, my great colleague from the Green Group of European Parliament, because of his very clear and profound stance on democracy and human rights in Hong Kong. Rainer.
I'm sorry, there is no sound from Reinhard's side. We don't hear
Rainer,
you.
May you unmute yourself? Nope. We don't hear you, Rainer.
Could you please unmute yourself, Reinhard? Now you are muted. Yeah, please. Could you please unmute yourself, Reinhard? Now you are muted. Yeah, please.
Rainer, floor is yours.
Now we hear you, please. No, the sound is gone. I'm sorry. The sound is gone. I'm sorry.
Oh. Reinhard, I'm really sorry. There are so many tries to get from outside. It looks like the Chinese are really busy with our online discussion. Sorry to say. I mean, sometimes it happens. I mean, before we fix a good sound and a quality channel with you, may I ask Anna Fotiga, I mean, to take a floor. Anna.
Thank you, Petras, colleagues, guests. I hope you hear me properly. Can you respond? Hello? Do you hear me? Okay. I would like to thank our both guests for their presentation. Picture is certainly extremely complicated. Actually, I learned quite a lot from your presentation, adding to what is already extremely complicated and difficult. With my experience since opposing of communist system in Poland, I would obviously support simply boycott of elections and consequent actions from the side of European Parliament. Yet, to some degree, when I listen about just or not even 50% until recently under the general suffrage, and then so many functional seats in legislative council. I think that boycott is to be partial. And that means weaker grip on society and impact on society of Hong Kong. I think that messages of democratic opposition from inside, but mostly from outside, should be very clear for citizens of Hong Kong, what to do in order to maintain further actions and further influence on society. Listening to Javier Lopez Aguilar, I think that one issue is extremely important. Of course, we are very critical about authoritarian actions by de facto PRC subordinated rulers of Hong Kong, but we have to know the source of all actions, and our behavior vis-à-vis Hong Kong should be parallel to our stance vis-à-vis PRC. That is important because source is there. So if we criticize so strongly rule of law in Hong Kong, we have to do the same in PRC, simply because it is real source of events. I think that we are ready to follow your indication. I turn here to Kawai Lee and to Chris. You have to give us details and eventual action plan how to support democratic opposition in order to keep resistance of Hong Kong people high in the agenda and be proactive. Thank you. People high in the agenda and be proactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your indeed a very good point on the side responsible. It's definitely PRC, and we have to call things by the right names. I'm looking at two remaining speakers, who is Miriam Lexman as well as Reinhard Butikov. Who is connected now? I look at for the technical support to people. Both? Miriam, can we ask you, to step in and to make your statement? Miriam, please turn the recording mode on, your camera as well, unmute yourself, please. Yes, we see you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I had problems to log in, so I didn't hear the previous speakers. I just logged in. I finally managed because there were some issues with that. So I had problems to log in. And now I hear myself twice. Hello?
Everything is fine. Please continue.
Okay, thank you very much. So I cannot react to the previous speakers. What I can only say is that I have been participating in the observation mission, which was organized by Lord Alton in 2019, which was during the local elections. And I have to say that, unfortunately, there we already have seen the strong efforts of the Communist Party to interfere into the elections and to practically stop the pro-democratic activism and pro-democratic move, which was so strongly felt in Hong Kong. The local elections, nevertheless, were won by the pro-democratic leaders, despite of the fact that practically many of the leaders could not participate. There were many different ways of coercion used by the Communist Party, and since then, many of us were trying to point out what's going on in Hong Kong, because practically if Hong Kong is going to lose its fight for democracy, this will be a loss of the West, the democratic West vis-a-vis China. And I believe that for these reasons, as Anna Fotiga has pointed out, we have to know and name the things by the proper name. We need to know who is our main enemy and who is the reason for losing this fight in Hong Kong. And what I would also say is, and I would follow the words of Anna, that we need to highlight what are the concrete steps we need to do in order to support this fight of Hong Kong for democracy. Because without concrete steps, I mean, we can always declare our disappointment with the development. We can always orally provide the support, but this is never enough. And we have to know what it means to provide this support, and it might also involve some costs on our side. But we know that the victory and the result and the aim for our efforts is practically to support the fight and to support the way how the relationships between Hong Kong and mainland China have been set by international treaties. We are practically part of it, and it's practically defending our own role in the world when we are defending that the treaties we are co-signatories of will be observed and will be fulfilled. So yes, I would maybe stop here. Unfortunately, because I couldn't log in, I cannot react to the speakers, which I really regret. But I will ask my colleagues who have been following the other link to give me briefing about the content. Thank you very much. But I will ask my colleagues who have been following the other link to give me briefing about the content. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam. We are really sorry for some technical disturbances. I mean, we are facing now, it looks like, I mean, Beijing is really following our online debate and does something to impact our smooth exchange. This is once again a proof that, you know, I mean, not everybody is interested in democratic procedures in Hong Kong and as well on continental China. Rainer, are you connected with us? So you are quite known figure in Beijing. You shouldn't be easily allowed, I mean, to speak up. But please, floor is yours. Reinhard. Unmute me. Kažkas tai matyti iš išorės. Reinhard, believe me, we unmuted you, but somebody is muted you from outside. So we're trying once again technically to to delete this problem, let's say, from our list, but
So we're trying once again technically to delete this problem, let's say, from our list, but
Button down and mute from his side.
now you have to unmute on your side. Reinhard, do something on your side. And speak up, please.
now we have to unmute on your side. Do something on your side. And speak up, please.
No, I mean, you are too important for Beijing, Reinhard. I am sorry. We can't do it technically.
Maybe I can
try always, I mean, to unmute you and to make you being heard, but there is no way technically. Sorry, it's a great problem. It's a great problem. Looks like, I mean, the great Chinese wall is in between of us. Sorry to say. But look, I mean, we have still 10 minutes to go, and maybe we should ask our speakers, I mean, to react to those proposals and statements made by the members of the European Parliament. Who wants to be first? Maybe Kawai Lee? Kawai, I mean, would you react and to be the first one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And I thank you for all of the members of European Parliament. I think Hong Kong is the one line in the battle of totalitarian regime, and I think that's why we have to boycott. And of course, it got so many other issues, but right now, the Legislative Council is what we are now focusing on. Because once the CCP said the election in Hong Kong is really successful and can really making Hong Kong still Hong Kong, and which is a lie. And if it works, it makes all the democratic system all around the world, who's once believe in democracy is good, can be collapsed because the CCP is just want to using Hong Kong as a gateway to promote their agenda, their propaganda, and others. So I think in long terms, Hong Kong still got a lot of problem to resolve. But at this point, we have to focus on boycotting the Legislative Council because it's now the only time and the most suitable time to react to. So yes, thank you for all the members. I think not only the appointed judges, there's so many issues on Hong Kong, and please bear with us and stay with Hong Kong once again in any other time. Thank you. Stay with Hong Kong once again in any other time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kawai. Chris, what would be your comments, especially after some practical suggestions, how the reaction from the EU side should be after Sunday's election?
Oh, I think the problem would be, like Kawai said, that you should all opt out. I can finally see my slides.
Like Kawai said,
Okay, so I need to give you a warning in that obviously if you tell people to boycott this election, to warn people to cast banned folks, then you will be put on the Hong Kong wanted list if that's what you want to do, because that's how the Hong Kong authorities will treat you. But I can pretty much assure you that the turnout of this election on Sunday would not be as high as the previous one that you've seen 2 years ago. So I think the EU itself should keep on stating that this election system currently in Hong Kong is not acceptable. That's one point. The second thing is we should keep in mind that because of an election that these people who they cannot participate in and be in jail for that. We should keep in mind that there are 47 people who are and 55 people who are being affected by this election. Some are in jail, some are facing life sentences. So the EU should keep on mentioning them to voice out for them. Okay. And that's all I want to say for now.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your short remarks. So we have no Butikofer with us. No, he's cut off. Reinhard, you are not accepted by Beijing standards to our online discussion. It's amazing. It's really amazing what we are having today during our online discussion. I mean, we didn't see such a great interest from outside, by the way, especially there have been some dozens and dozens tries to connect, reconnect, and we know where from it comes in this case. Well, colleagues, we are coming to the end of our online discussion. I'm looking at my colleagues from the European Parliament. Would you like, I mean, to be back with your short remarks or summaries after our today's exchange? Miriam, Anna, Juan. I see Anna wants to be back. Is that true?
No, thank you. We'll be seeing each other. No, thank you. We'll be seeing each other.
All right. Understood. So with this, colleagues, I believe we might sum up our online exchange of today concerning the Hong Kong Legislative Council elections to be held this Sunday. There have been very good remarks concerning our possible reaction and statement after elections. And I think we have concentrated our efforts on this, making our message as clear as possible, as well as to follow up the legislative elections with further actions, especially what comes to the treaties and observation of treaties, as well as relations with Hong Kong and PRC in general. So that's why I thank you, all the speakers, all the participants. I'm sorry once again for those technical problems we have faced with during our online exchange. It looks like it was inevitable. It's quite a lesson. It's quite a lesson for us. I mean, for our future events, we have to be careful and well prepared and better prepared at that instance. And I'm looking forward with our. Yes, Miriam, you want to come in?
I have an idea. What if Reinhard calls you, for example, and you will put the speaker to the mic? I have an idea. What if Reinhard calls you, for example, and you will put the speaker to the mic?
Yes, it would be possible.
Yes, Reinhard. I hear you. Hello? Yes, I do.
Sorry for all the technical problems. I don't know what happened. I'm also sidewise now. I haven't moved and whatever the issue is. I want just shortly to express my solidarity and to say one thing that I think is very important. Our solidarity with Hong Kong should also include raising the flag high that they cannot fly at the moment in Hong Kong. And in particular, since we've just seen that people have been sentenced because of the last June 4th vigil, we should prepare to organize June 4th vigils in as many European capitals as possible next year, to fly the flag of freedom and the flag of democracy, and to commemorate the sacrifice and the engagement of Democrats in Hong Kong and in China. And I think this would be a great contribution to show that this flag is going to fly, even if it is not allowed to fly in Hong Kong at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Reinhard. Unmute myself. Okay, so I thank you, Reinhard, for his clear statements. And indeed, our today's online event I take as a step forward, as a mobilization for our further and future actions in order to support pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. No doubt, I'm sure that our Hong Kong Watch Group will come up with further steps and further actions in this regard. So don't feel as being abandoned, not at all. I mean, we are motivated, and our today's event once again demonstrates our solidarity with Hong Kong people and pro-democracy flag, what Reinhard so elegantly put on. I thank you all speakers and participants of our today online exchange. I wish you all the best. Unfortunately, I can't wish you all the best for Sunday's elections, but our reaction will be as needed, I'm sure, in this regard. And I'm looking forward for our future cooperation on many issues we have in common. Thank you, and have a nice day.